Okay, is the audio, is the mic on? This mic is working, right? Not that we really need it, but for the extreme, the remote stream, we do. And this one's working. Well, this one's definitely working. Okay.
Audience mic test.
We'll get started in a moment or two. I'm waiting for Eric, who's going to help me co-chair this. The other thing while we're getting started, is there anybody, ordinarily Dieter helps take notes, but Dieter is not well today, so I was wondering if anybody else would be willing to help take notes. Anyone? Excuse me? Okay. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, Dieter is not feeling well, so we wish him a speedy recovery. This is the NTP Working Group. Welcome to the last session of the week for IETF 115. And thank you for everybody who is still here at the end of the week. This is the note well, which you've seen all week. you agree to this when you register for the IETF. It's the set of rules and processes that govern the way the IETF operates. So please make sure you are familiar with it. You have agreed to abide by it. Um, and if you have any questions, feel free to see Dieter or Eric, our AD. Also, I'd like to remind everybody that we want to uh, we want to abide by the code of conduct and basically be nice to everybody. So our agenda for today, um, this uh, this is the agenda for today. It's up on the notes pad. Um, if somebody a little bit faster on the link wants to stick the link into the, you should be able to find it from the agenda page on the IETF. You'll see which one is the notes pad, or somebody could stick it into chat for folks that are unfamiliar with that particular thing. Feel free to add to the notes as we go. That will be turned into the minutes at the end. So with that, is there any agenda bashing? Any comments or questions? Nope. Okay. So the first thing is we have our document status review update page, reminding us of the things that we are working on. Um, the first thing is we do, second thing, I did forget, I'm sure by Friday everybody knows this. Please be sure to scan the QR code. That's what we'll use to manage the queue, and it also does the attendance or the virtual blue sheet, so don't forget to do that. We do have a new RFC. RFC 9327, which is the Control Messages Protocol for the use with NTP v4. This has been published as a historic RFC in the category historic as opposed to experimental, informational, or any of those things. So a special thank you to Brian Haberman and to Eric for a great deal of patience in getting this through the process. We have 3 more documents that have sort of passed the working group. And into at the IESG in various stages. The first one is the interleave modes, which we believe we're basically going to defer to V5, but we wanted to discuss. Did you want to talk about that? Words. Words are always good.
Yes, so Eric Klein. The interleave modes, we brought it to the telechat. It got one security AD abstained, and some other people were operational people were very concerned about the safety. My proposal was that if we wanted to continue with the document, we should. I think the why this is safe stuff is spread out through each different possible mode description, and it might be worth reiterating all of that in one common section before that that says, look, this is really not scary, and not only is it not scary, it's actually running now, and things haven't blown up. But if we could do that, and then I could bring it back to telechat if we want, or we could not pursue interleave modes for V4 anymore and just leave that as a feature to be baked in from the beginning for V5. That's whatever the authors and the working group wants to do. I don't know. So, but Lars is pinging me saying, hey, what are you going to do with this? So it's currently in some limbo state, basically, between maybe we'll do something with it and maybe we'll abandon it. But it'd be good to know what the working group wants to do, one way or the other.
Right. So I think we basically have 2 options. One would be to send it back to the working group and then to update it um, with the additional safety information in a more concise manner like you're talking about, or we declare it a dead document and then just plan to work on it. As far as data tracker statuses go, those are our 2 options, right?
Well, for the first one, bringing it back to the working group is an option. It could also just be handled by the author.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it depends on how significant we think it is. If it's a restating of text that already exists and has consensus, then we're just like copying that and putting it out into one place for clarity. I don't think that has to come back to the working group because we haven't changed anything.
Okay.
If we do decide to dramatically alter something, the meaning of something or whatever, then yeah, we would probably bring it back to the working group. But I think it can be treated as editorial.
Oh, okay.
And it could just be handled by the author and just reply to the people who have the feedback. At this point, the document has changed telechat, has changed IESGs. So the objections were from some previous members who are no longer on the IESG, so I would have to bring it back to telechat. But Miroslav could just
Right.
take some edits and we could bring it back.
Okay.
Try again.
And Miroslav has conveniently already joined the queue. Go ahead, Miroslav.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I think at the time this was discussed last time, I think there was a suggestion to try to change it to an informational document, and that would be more likely to be accepted by IESG. Is this still an option, or would it make it more likely to work?
I think I mean, possibly. I don't know what would change the minds of everybody who still holds concerns. I think the main concern from the ops ADs was that they did not believe it was safe to do. They were not convinced that it was that widespread problems would not happen. So I think they just needed some. My impression or my recollection is that they just needed some convincing. They needed some reassurance. So I don't know that changing to informational is required. So I think it was more about, wait. Why is this safe? How is this not going to break everything? They didn't really, they weren't able to glean that easily from the document. And if we made it easy for them to see that it was in fact safe, that's my current understanding. Yeah, I don't think the status of the document necessarily would change that.
Okay.
Informational, standard, it
Sorry.
could still, they might still be concerned about safety.
Have they read the latest version of the draft that has a new section on the safety of the protocol? I think this was published after the last round of discussion, so I'm not sure if they have seen the.
I'm not actually sure if I know that you had uploaded a new version. If you have, then I can go chase down people to re-review it.
Well, it's a few years ago, so I'm not sure.
Okay, that's on me then. I will take the action item to go review the diff, and then chase down people's additional re-reviews.
Okay, thanks.
So Miroslav, did I understand you correctly? You uploaded a draft that addressed that, or did you send an email with a suggestion?
I think I uploaded it, but it was so long ago that I'm not sure anymore. But this was after the email discussion we had with ISG, and I haven't seen anyone responding to that, so I'm not sure if anyone actually read it.
I can take the action item to
Okay.
catch up on all the threads and make sure that everybody has seen all the new proposed text, whether it's in email or in document form. I'll do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Miroslav. So I think so you're going to check on the status, but the plan is to still continue to try and publish and not to defer.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Okay,
that,
great.
We might as well take another run at it and see what happens. If everyone's hair is still on fire, then we can reevaluate after the second attempt.
Okay. So that's where we are with interleave modes. Updating the NTP registries has been submitted and is in the process of being reviewed, and the enterprise profile has been submitted, but it's still lacking a shepherd write-up. So. Oh, you did an AD eval and it has a revised.
Yeah, I think the TikTok doc I reviewed and I gave some comments, and I'm waiting for a new version to be uploaded, which possibly I missed in my inbox. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't. There has not been an updated draft.
Okay.
So I missed that you did an AD eval. So
I thought I sent some comments. I'll double check that too.
I'm sure you did, and I missed it. So
And that can go to IETF last call as soon as there's a new version.
as soon as we get a new version on it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this one, so updating NTP registries is waiting on Eric to double check, and enterprise profile is waiting on the authors to submit an updated draft. So that's where we are with all of those. The next set of topics, these are all things that we've had at least a little bit of discussion on since the last meeting. For Kronos, Netta is on the call. This has passed working group last call, and all of the comments have been addressed, and the latest draft addresses the last of the typos that were found. That's correct, right, Netta?
Right. And I also went over the draft once again, top down, to make sure that everything is clear. So I think it is ready right now.
I hate to do this to you. Could you say that one more time, please?
Sorry. Yeah, I fixed the typo that Marcus found, and I also went over the draft once again, top down, to see that to make sure that everything was clear. So I
Okay,
think
great.
it's good.
And looking at the slides here, I realized that I forgot to change the C to a K. So for those who are following this work at a distance, the name got changed from Kronos with a C to Kronos with a K because of some conflict issues. We're not going to change the file name itself, but it will be changed in the documents and in the title. With that, Dieter and I talked earlier this week, and this is ready to go to the ISG, and he is going to manage the Shepherd write-up for that.
Very much.
Did you have anything else you wanted to say on the Kronos?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is NTP-v5 on a number of topics. The first thing we're going to talk about is we did have a small hackathon team here on the weekend, and David's going to talk about what they did.
Okay, hello, I'm David. During the hackathon, we spent a bunch of time on NTP, particularly, next slide please, focusing around the main problem questions of can we build experimental interoperable implementations for this, and are there any major technical gaps in the draft as it currently stands? The results we have, next slide please, for that are there is now 2 experimental implementations. One of these existed already before the weekend at Mios Labs, and the other one came about mostly this weekend. We verified that they are indeed talking happily to each other. They seem to be synchronizing all the loop detection algorithms, which is the main part of what we're now focusing on, what the current draft mostly focused on. Initially, seems to be functioning correctly, seems to be reasonably easy to implement across implementations. So we've identified a few minor issues in the NTP-DRS implementation. These have since been fixed. So a few more have been found since the hackathon and have also been fixed. So if you were using it for whatever reason, there are updates available now again. And we've also had, we've identified a few minor things as well with the draft, but we'll get to that in a minute. And we've had a lot of discussions on timescales and leap seconds because those are fairly hard, and we'll get to those at least to some extent later as well. Next slide, please. So the main takeaways we've had is that timescale offsets, especially for UT1, with as they currently stand in the draft won't fully work, particularly should in the future it ever get decided that UTC moves away from having leap seconds, as at that point the UT1 offset would be larger than 1 second, and the current draft just assumes it's below a second. And we've identified that there is a need still for a case of death type mechanism that was in NTP-v4 to also have that in NTP-v5, and that we need to start adding that to the current draft. These were the main takeaways. Next slide, please. So these were the people who were involved in the hackathon, and a short list of links for all of the main things that were touched during the hackathon. For those interested, are there any questions about anything I've said so far?
No questions? Thank you all very much. I think it was very productive. Okay. I don't see James in the meeting. There has not been an update to the use cases and requirements document. There has been some discussion about needing some more detail and a feeling that we're not quite hitting the hard issues yet. And we would like to wrap this up. I was sort of hoping to wrap it up by the end of the year. I think we probably ought to target the next meeting, the next physical meeting. So maybe the Yokohama IETF. If we could target having that at least sent to the IESG, that would be really helpful. Does anybody have any comments on the use cases and requirements? Has anybody reviewed it recently? Oh, wait. You can walk that way.
Hi, David, again. There's one thing I think we should still work on getting a little bit tighter on what our priorities are going to be around synchronization performance versus security in the protocol, in the requirements document, because I think we're going to at some point have to make trade-offs in that, and it would. I think we need to think about those beforehand before we start getting down into the weeds. But are there any thoughts on that from Miroslav in particular?
Miroslav, do you have any comments on the? Oh, he's joining. Excellent.
I think you are referring to the correction field, which wouldn't be authenticated, maybe. This is the discussion we had, I think, on the hackathon. If we need to authenticate everything or if it's acceptable for the correction field, because that would be difficult to implement in the networking devices to re-authenticate the NTP message if it was modified. So there is a question if it's acceptable to make some fields outside of the authenticated payload. In my opinion, I think that's okay, because the impact that an attacker, a man-in-the-middle attacker, could have by modifying the data in the unauthenticated part of the message is still smaller than the impact that, for example, the delay attack has. Basically, delaying the message has a bigger impact on the measurement of the client than would have the modification in the unauthenticated part in the correction field, as long as the client verifies that the correction is not larger than the measured delay. So yeah, my opinion is that this is okay, but maybe others don't share this view.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, to respond to that, that is one aspect I think we should consider, but also in general, when we start introducing mandatory signing, which is one of the things the requirements now pretty much hints at that we should do. You're going to add crypto to the response, the request response path at the server, which is gonna inevitably add additional residence time on the server side, which will impact some of the uncertainty in these algorithms for synchronizing everything. And I think we should be thinking about what trade-offs are we willing to make there, there as well, as in, do we find that an acceptable trade-off, and how are we going to be looking at that moving forward?
Go ahead, Miroslav.
There is, with the interleaved mode, there should be no impact on accuracy or stability of the synchronization with respect to the crypto operations that may take longer. So I don't see this as a concern.
Okay, Rick.
Rick van Rijn, Open Fortress. I'm very happy that if the crypto is actually made very strong, because many cryptographic algorithms base rely heavily on time, and this has been very long been a problem that we looked away from it because there was nothing that really allowed us to synchronize with cryptographical strength. It's an important thing to have proper timing and to be sure about it. So please don't make any trade-offs in that respect, and especially if you can just measure the signing time and make the part of your calculation.
Anything else on this topic? I think given the, I think what we're going to need to do, that this document is fairly solid. I'll check with James and see. We might need to do a working group last call to see if we can get people to review it for the last time. In the meantime, feel free, please, to review it on the mailing list. That would be great. All right, the next topic is the NTP v5 specification. This has been stable for quite a while, and we now have 2 interoperable implementations. It's been out for call for adoption. I've heard no opposition to the fact that we plan to adopt this document. So with that, we will be adopting it as a working group document. Is there any comments or questions on that? Okay. I'll do the data tracker magic later today. And Miroslav, when you get a chance, if you want to submit an updated draft with the working group name on it, that would be great. Okay. The next item was a discussion of timescales. As David hinted, there was some discussion of this at the hackathon, so I think it's top of mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, so after having a couple of discussions with a number of people, I've started to realize that the requirements document is not as clear as the opinion some individuals might have as to which approach we're going to take for timescales. Essentially, there's From what I've been able to tell, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, Miroslav, there's roughly two approaches we can take here. We can say that all timestamps included in NTP exchanges are always timestamped according to whatever best approximation a server has of one specific timescale, for example, TIE or for example, UTC. And then we provide sufficient information in addition to those timestamps to be able to get to whatever timescale an end user might want to use, depending on what it asks for. Or there's the approach, and this is the approach that's, as I understand it, is currently in the draft, is we leave these timestamps essentially, leave it open which timescale that is on. The protocol packet, of course, specifies this, but there's not all NTP5 packets use this timescale for their for the timestamps, and then optionally on top of that provide the mechanism for exchange of information on how to translate between these different timescales. I think we should have the discussion which of these we prefer. Perhaps that is a discussion for the mailing list. But I think we need to explore what the advantages and disadvantages of each of these approaches are, because I don't have a full feeling for which option we should choose at this point.
Go ahead, Miroslav.
I would like to add that my focus was on allowing the server to have a preferred timescale, because in the basic mode, the time critical part is between capturing the timestamp from the clock that the server is using and putting that into the message. So the idea was that the server could have a preferred timescale, which would use for the transmit timestamp and for the other timestamps, because it's simpler to specify it and implement it. And if the client needs a different timescale, then it should be able to get the missing information to convert the timestamps into its own preferred timescale. So the focus was on the server side to make it easier to implement the protocol while allowing the server to use, for instance, hardware timestamping, where it might not be possible to implement UTC only without leap seconds. So the client would need to be able to convert it to UTC if the server is providing timestamps in TIE.
Any thoughts on this topic from anybody else? Anybody else online? I know 1588 has done a fair amount of work looking at alternative timescales as well, so we should probably take a look at what they're doing to make sure that anything we do would at least be aligned somewhat with what they're doing. Because a lot of NTP and PTP systems need to coexist. Okay. So that brings us to the end of our NTP v5 list of topics. The next agenda item is rough time. The last update of the, I just lost my data. Oh, there it is. The last update of the rough time document was at the end of September. I know Marcus had planned to have during the hackathon, he had planned to have a virtual hackathon effort. There were a number of parties that had indicated interest, but they were all going to be remote participants. And at the end of it, we actually ended up with none of them except for Marcus coming. Krister from NetNode was here and was working on it a little bit as well, but he ended up focusing primarily on NTP v5. So we didn't have much activity during the hackathon on rough time. and the authors of the document are not here. So I think about the only thing that we can do is ask for some additional comments and review on the list. I don't think there's been any comments on the list of this document since it was last published. Is there anything? The other thing is that just as a comment, the rough time ecosystem document has expired. So is there anybody here who wishes to speak to rough time? Oh, hi, Ben. Go ahead.
Hi there. Yeah, we're quite interested in rough time at Google, and actually we've just been going over the draft. There's a group of us who are planning to do some work on it. We've gone over the draft. We got a pile of comments, which we will, a small pile of comments, which we'll post to the mailing list next week sometime. And we are planning to do an implementation of some future ID when it's in a shape we're happy with. We're planning to use it as part of our work on supply chain security stuff in general.
Oh, thank you. That's good to know. So with that, we'll look forward to the Google comments coming on the mailing list. And if anybody else could please review the document and put some comments on the mailing list, that would be very helpful. Anything else on rough time? Okay. We have 2 pieces of work that we have not had recent updates on. The NTP over PTP, it has been out for a call for adoption. I've seen no opposition to doing that. And so at this stage, we will be adopting that document. I'm assuming, Miroslav, you don't have any comments. You're just waiting for us to adopt it, correct?
Right.
Okay. And the, oh, that's funny. There's an edit, a copy and paste error on my slide. So ignore everything after NTS over PTP. They might look suspiciously familiar as the items that were under the document update slide 3 slides ago. So the NTS over PTP effort, there is still interest in doing it. The primary author was doing some collaboration with an industry partner, and they have not gotten that update done yet. So there is no update to report. Last I heard, they were hoping to get something out in the November timeframe. So hopefully we'll see something coming out of that pretty soon. Anything else on NTS over PTP? Okay. So we have any other business and way forward at this stage? Any other business, does anybody have any other business that they'd like to bring? Oh.
Yeah, sorry. If this is like an AOB moment, I just wanted to say 2 thank yous. One, thank you to everybody who helped me close out all of the open errata. That was super helpful and very much appreciated. And 2, thank you to everyone who did some very nice hackathon work that will be good to show in the Shepherd write-up that there are interoperable implementations. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Any other businesses? Okay. As I mentioned earlier, Dieter and I met earlier this week, and we're discussing ways to keep us moving forward on a more steady pace. I think for the NTP working group in particular, sometimes the virtual interims are a little bit more effective just because of they're more effective in keeping us moving. So we do plan to have some virtual interims. We're currently planning 3 between now and the next IETF. Those are our tentative dates. This will be in the minutes. If anybody has any strong objections to any of these dates, please feel free to speak up. It's roughly a month or every month or 5 weeks between now and the March IETF meeting. The March IETF meeting is in Yokohama. we will be thinking about what we can do in the context of a hackathon. I think the lesson we learned with NTS and that we are relearning with NTP-V5 is it really helps to focus the work and move it forward if we can have a little bit of hackathon activity on the protocol as we're moving forward. So we'll be needing to figure out who from the NTP community might actually be able to participate in Yokohama or be willing to participate remotely on hackathon activity during Yokohama working hours. So keep an eye out for that. The other thing that we have talked about doing is I think we have, we're a little bit, a couple of years into the deployment of NTS, and we're beginning to see some deployment reports and experimental results that we would like to talk about and see how that's going and what lessons it might teach us going forward. And so we are planning to have a discussion specifically focused on the deployment status of NTS to see if we can get some idea of who's using it and how they're using it and what kinds of results they're looking at. And so I think since this is such a new protocol, it would be really helpful to get some perspectives on that. And with that, is there any other, anything else people want to bring to the floor? Next time I'm going to bring popcorn or something. Maybe sugar snacks. That's what you need is sugar snacks. So with that, I'm going to close the NTP Working Group meeting for IETF 115. Everybody have a safe trip home, and hopefully we will see you virtually and in person in the future.
This is enough to reconstruct together with their oh well. Okay. That was the important part. On Monday. Yeah. Oh, that probably will. I am intending to be in Prague, at least. I am intending to be in Prague, at least. It's the first one that's reasonably close for me. So that one's definitely doable. Yeah, Yokohama and San Francisco would be really nice if I could swing it, but unless Josh finds me a lot of funding to use for this, I doubt it. Yeah. Yeah, we're not really big projects. It's a bit hard.